Hey everybody, I'm Dave, and today I'm going to tell you a little story about how I quit smoking after 15 years in hopes that this reaches somebody who may also have the same habit and wants to stop it and kind of doesn't know where to go, or maybe has tried a few things and they haven't worked. So I was 12 years old the first time I smoked a cigarette. So I went to my elementary school after hours to play basketball with some kids, and there was an older kid there that was puffing cigarettes. And he was kind of popular, a little older. He asked me if I wanted one. And, I kind of didn't really want to try it, but, he pressured me a little bit, and so I said, okay, sure. So smoked my first cigarette, didn't really know what I was doing, didn't know how to inhale, just kind of dragging it, holding it in my mouth, and then kind of expelling it out for lack of better terms. Did it 2-3 times with these kids at school. And then a weird thing happened. One day my stepfather, he used to smoke. And he was getting ready for work. He was in the shower, and I walked by his pack of cigarettes around the kitchen table. And for whatever reason, I stole 2 of them. I went outside and I smoked one of them. And then a little later on that afternoon, I smoked another one. So that's kind of how I got started. There was no real plan, no rhyme or reason to start. It just kind of serendipitously happened, as a lot of things do, with kids and when we were younger. So about at 13, I was coming home from school one day, and I was walking home with an older kid. He was a couple years older than me. And I lit up a cigarette, and so did he. And he asked me, he goes, when did you start smoking? I said, oh, I've been smoking for a while. And he looked at me and kind of laughed, and he noticed that I wasn't inhaling. So he told me, he said, what you need to do is, take a drag and open your mouth and suck in air, pretty deeply. So I did, and I coughed my head off. I thought I was gonna throw up, felt super sick. And the kid laughed at me, he goes, now you're smoking. So as soon as I learned how to inhale, that's pretty much once I got addicted. And then I smoked for many, many years. I smoked for 15 years. From 13 to 28 is the length of when I smoked. First year, I got bronchitis. And subsequently, I got bronchitis every year after that. So I went to the doctor when I was about 16, and I told him that I was smoking. And he said, well, that's why you're getting bronchitis. And I said, but, I'm trying to quit, but it's really hard. I've been doing it for 3 years. And the guy told me, he said, imagine how hard it's going to be to quit after you've been smoking for 30 years. And that really kind of like sunk deep into my head, and it gave me something to think about. After I left the doctor, I didn't quit smoking. I thought about it. I made a million reasons and theories in my head on why I should quit and how I would quit. And none of them just really ever stuck with me. By the time I was like 17, 18, I was coughing a lot, hacking a lot, shortness of breath, didn't really exercise a whole lot, and pretty unhealthy for an 18-year-old adult. And it was mainly correlated to smoking. So by the time I was in my early 20s, I started having kind of heart issues and went to another doctor, had some stuff done, and basically the guy said, there's nothing wrong with your heart. The reason why you feel like you're having a heart attack is because you're smoking cigarettes. So stop smoking and the heart problems will go away. So easier said than done, right? I tried to quit smoking many different times. I made New Year's resolutions. I would say, after vacation, I'm going to quit, or after such and such happens, I'm going to quit. And then I started making up little stories in my mind that, I'd only smoke on the weekends. And, when I was in my 20s, I was able to drink legally. So, I would say, well, I'm only going to smoke when I drink, and that's on the weekends. Well, what I found out was these thought processes that I was creating in my head were leading to other bad habits. So, for instance, I'm only going to smoke when I drink on the weekends turned out to be I started drinking during the week more, so subconsciously, so I could smoke. Unknowingly, I was kind of turning myself into an alcoholic as well because I couldn't stop the smoking. So I decided to try a bunch of things. So I tried, like I said, I tried New Year's resolutions. That didn't work. I tried quitting cold turkey. That didn't work. I tried a few different things. Nicotine gum, tried to chew that to stop smoking. And I found that nicotine gum gave me hiccups tremendously. So it didn't really work. I started chewing tobacco, and that helped me to quit smoking because I would just chew tobacco when I wanted a cigarette. But what I found is as time went on, I started chewing tobacco in conjunction with smoking. So I would have a wad of chew in my lip that got bigger and bigger as my addiction got stronger, and I would be smoking at the same time. So that didn't work either. That just created another bad habit. I went to the doctor. I got some stuff called Wellbutrin, and that can help you to stop smoking. But it had a lot of mental side effects. I had really kind of cloudy thinking and a few other things kind of going on. And so I thought that that was kind of not a good thing that I wanted to do, was to get on some sort of other drug to alleviate my need for this drug. So I quit the Wellbutrin and did all that. So I found a place called the Leslie Cam Stop Smoking Center. It is auricular therapy on your ears. It's like a form of acupuncture, but instead of needles, they do electric impulses. So I did that and it worked. I quit for 6 months, and I ran into a friend, old friend, at a bar, and he went outside to smoke. And so I said, oh, let me bum one. And then within the month, I was back to smoking a pack a day. So that didn't work either. So after a few months, I decided to go back to the Leslie Cam Stop Smoking Center and have it done again. So it did work this time, but the reason why it worked, and this is ultimately what lasted, so I've been smoke-free for 13 years. In order to change my habit of smoking, I was thinking of it consciously as a negative. I needed to quit something. So anytime our minds think about quitting something, we think of lack and limitation, and as human beings, have loss aversion, so we don't like to lose. So my mind, my conscious mind, saying I need to stop this thing, fed my subconscious mind to think that I'm going to lose out on something, I'm going to miss out. And so that's why prior I never was able to stop smoking, because I was always looking at it as, you know, giving up something that I enjoyed. I had a guy tell me one time, he goes, you need to start looking at yourself as becoming a non-smoker and not quitting smoking. He said what that does is when you see yourself as a non-smoker, you take away all the loss aversion to quitting something. You're just transferring your energy. I was a smoker and I was transferring into becoming a non-smoker. Quitting smoking's hard, but the reason why it's so hard is because you're not just giving up smoking, you're giving up all these other habits. So when I would wake up, I'd go to smoke. After I would eat, I would go to smoke. After I'd get in the car, I'd go to smoke. You know, after work, during lunch breaks, you know, after certain things in my life, I would have a cigarette to kind of like put a period on those things. So those were what I had to start first, was changing those small habits. So the way I did it was when I would wake up in the morning, you know, I had about 8 hours of sleep where I wasn't smoking. So I had, you know, a pretty good jump on kind of expelling it out of my system. So what I would do is I would try to wait as long as possible for that first cigarette in the morning. So instead of jumping out of bed and smoking, I'd wait till maybe I left for work or got to work, and I moved that time back and back as the weeks went on. Another thing I did was after I ate, you know, all smokers, you want to smoke right after you eat a good meal. And so what I would do is I would say, well, I'm going to wait 5 minutes before I smoke. And my brain would go into like a meltdown. It was almost like I was taking a toy away from a child. And I would have to remind myself, hey, you're still going to get your cigarette, but it's just going to be 5 minutes after you eat, not directly after you ate. So that helped, and I pushed that time back. You know, I did that for a week, and then the next week I would go 10 minutes till after I ate, and then 15, and then 20. And every time my mind would kind of get a little wibbly wobbly on me and freak out, I would just remind myself that, hey, I'm still going to have the cigarette, but it's just going to be a little bit. And what I came to find out is, from breaking those small habits and not breaking them, but changing those habits, sometimes I would wait 15 minutes after I ate, and then I wouldn't even want a cigarette. The urge would kind of dissipate. And another thing, a big habit I had was getting in the car and lighting up a cigarette. And so I changed my habit there to where I decided I wasn't going to smoke in my car anymore. So if I was driving down the road and I would crave a cigarette, I would just pull over and just have a cigarette. So after a while, that kind of habit subsided too, because I would eventually say to myself, well, I'm not going to pull over driving, I'll just smoke when I get to where I'm going. So those small habits, changing those, built me up for success later when I decided to become a non-smoker. So when I became a non-smoker, I knew I had to change certain things. You know, I couldn't hang out at the same places. So like going to bars, I would smoke a cigarette. So I decided that I never really had a problem with alcohol, but I decided that I would stop smoking or stop drinking for 30 days. And that would take me out of that habit of having a beer or a drink and smoking a cigarette with it. There's chemicals in alcohol and cigarettes that bond together, and it's like freebasing. So your brain like turns on like crazy. So if you like a beer and you like a cigarette and you pair them together, it's like put your brain in hyperdrive. And that's why those two things go together. And they're actually chemically made that way by the manufacturers. You know, when you have alcohol, you're programmed to want to smoke and vice versa. So I stopped drinking for 30 days, went to the Leslie Cam Stop Smoking Center, had the auricular therapy done for the second time. And I noticed that when I didn't have alcohol, I didn't have the triggers to want to smoke. Now, not having alcohol meant that I wasn't going to bars, I wasn't hanging out at, you know, house parties and things like that. You know, I was kind of just by myself, creating new habits and new thought processes. So that was another kind of trick that I did. So after I quit drinking for 30 days, I quit smoking for 30 days. I decided to go have a cocktail at a bar, and I went there, I had one drink, and about halfway through, I craved a cigarette. So I didn't even finish my drink. I just slid across the bar, paid, left, and went home. And that was pretty hard to do. The next thing, I had friends that would come over to my house, and I would make them go outside and smoke. So when they would be outside smoking, I'd be inside, and I initially felt like kind of lonely that, you know, I'm inside by myself and my friends are out there smoking. I wanted to go out there with them, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to join them outside in a situation like that without wanting a cigarette, smelling it, have it introduced to my body. So I kind of broke that habit too, you know, even though I didn't want to be without my friends for that 10 minutes they were out there smoking. You know, I told my brain that, hey, I'll see them again. They'll be back in shortly. So that was a way to kind of change that paradigm as well. So by changing those small habits, you know, when we get into habits, we're actually programming our subconscious mind to do things subconsciously. So, you know, if you bite your nails when you're nervous, you'll do that subconsciously in a crowd and not even realize you're doing it. So the same way with smoking, you know, like if you're programmed to your body to smoke, then there'll be times when you just go to grab one and you don't even realize you're doing it, or you'll smoke one after another and maybe not realize it. So stopping small habits first, and this is kind of with any addiction, breaking the small little habits and having those little bitty wins sets you up for a big success later. Because then when you go to change your habit from, you know, in my case, becoming a smoker to becoming a non-smoker, it wasn't so much of a change because I had already changed all these little habits leading up to the big non-smoking thing. That works for me, and it's been 12 years, almost 13 years, I'll be smoke-free. So the first year was kind of rough, you know, I kind of wanted to go back into those old habits and do those old things, which all meant smoking a cigarette. So I had to change my little habits. I had to change where I hung out at, who I hung out with, and most importantly, I had to change my thought patterns. You know, that guy telling me, you got to become a non-smoker in your minds instead of thinking of it as something you're losing. That really clicked for me. So anytime you want to stop one thing, you have to replace it with something else. So the biggest thing that helped me quit smoking, other than the Leslie Cam Stop Smoking Center, was I had to replace my habit of smoking, you know, physically doing something with my body. You know, it's a ritual when you smoke. You take it out and you put it in your mouth and you light it up and the ashtray and the whole deal. It's like a physical ritual that you're going through that you don't have in your life anymore. So your brain goes haywire. So I replaced that habit with this right here. So these are cinnamon toothpicks. This brand is Hotlix, and I'm not affiliated with this company in any way or Leslie Cam Stop Smoking Center, but I wanted to share this with you guys. So when I finally was able to go to a bar and have a drink with friends, what I did was I would sit at the bar, I would grab the ashtray like I normally do, take my drink, and I'd pull out these cinnamon toothpicks, open one up, put one in my mouth, chew on it for about 4 or 5 minutes, the length of a cigarette, and then I'd throw the toothpick in the ashtray just like I was extinguishing a cigarette. So doing that, and then when I would get in my car, I'd chew one of these. I chewed these things for like 4 or 5 years straight, and it took the place of the ritual of smoking. So while mentally I was changing my habits, physically I was also changing my habits to change from one ritual, which was smoking, to another one, which was similar, chewing these toothpicks. After about 3 or 4 years, I was able to get off the toothpicks. I don't really chew them anymore. I saw these at a store the other day, and it made me think of like, oh my God, it's been 13 years since I've had a cigarette, and it was all due to these little toothpicks and to change my habits. So just wanted to share that with you. You know, a lot of people gain weight because they'll stop smoking and they'll go right to, you know, eating a lot or candy or something like that. So chewing gum can help, but chewing gum is not the same ritual as putting your hand to your mouth, where I feel like these toothpicks came in handy with that. So that's how I stopped smoking. I'm not trying to make you feel bad if you smoke or cause you anxiety if you're trying to quit and haven't been successful, or maybe you're trying to stop another habit that you have. So I just want to reiterate that to stop any habit, it's not so much stopping the habit, it's changing your mindset, replacing it with a different habit, hopefully a good habit. So if you have a problem with alcohol and you want to stop alcohol, your mind's going to go haywire when you try to tell it, hey, you're not going to have alcohol anymore. So maybe you tell your mind, hey, we're still going to have alcohol in moderation, but instead of going to the bar every night, we're going to go to the gym instead. And you form a new habit of going to the gym. Or maybe if you smoke cigarettes, you switch to toothpicks. But the main thing that helped me was changing those little small habits, those little bitty victories that built up over time, that when I wanted to really pull the trigger and become a non-smoker, I was able to do that. So I hope this video helped you. If you've got any questions or any tips, I'll put a link below for the cinnamon toothpicks and the Leslie Cam Stop Smoking Center. I don't know if they're nationwide, but you can find an auricular therapy center probably where you live. So hope this message finds you well. Just a backstory: after I quit smoking, it's been 13 years. I feel great. I'm obviously older now than I was when I smoked, but I go to the gym pretty frequently. I eat pretty healthy, and just overall experiencing a better quality of life than I did when I was smoking cigarettes. And I didn't really know how poorly I felt while I smoked until after I quit. It had been a few years that I really understand that life is more beneficial without using substances. So hope this message finds you well. Have a great day.